You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Send in your nominations now for the APN Awards. The APN Awards celebrate the best in archaeology, heritage, history, anthropology, museum, and cultural podcasts from around the world. Open to independent, academic, institutional, and network-produced shows, the awards recognize outstanding storytelling, research communication, production, hosting, and more. Award categories include Podcast of the Year, Best Educational Podcast, Best New Podcast, Best Interview, Best Storytelling Episode, Best Host, and several fun APN-only awards for those shows hosted on the Archaeology Podcast Network. Send in your nominations before the 1st of August 2026. Public voting will then be open from the 1st of September to the 1st of October 2026, and then will culminate in a live awards show on the International Day of Archaeology, so October 17th, 2026. Find out all information and send in your nominations through the Archaeology Podcast Network website. This is Tea Break Archaeology, where we explore the ancient origins of everyday objects. Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Tea Break Archaeology. I'm Matilda Ziebrecht.
And I'm Jessica Van Dam.
And today I'm savouring a peach and vanilla green tea and slight change to usual because it is an iced tea, which is very nice. It's lovely. I've started, I'm really proud of myself, actually. I've started properly prepping my iced teas, the day before. So I'll, make it and everything and boil it, boil the water and make the tea and everything. And then I've got these really nice, glass bottles that some juice comes in from the supermarket. And then I wash them out and keep them and I use them for my green tea, my iced tea, which is very nice. But anyway, so yes, that's what I'm savouring today. How about you?
I am also drinking an iced tea, except that, so it's a herbal peach tea, but I don't even boil water to make it. I just have my glass pitcher and I throw cold water in it, throw, a number of tea bags in, and then just shove it in the fridge. And within 8 hours, it's good to go.
Interesting. I might try that then. But do you do it with actual tea as well? Because this one's basically a peach and vanilla green tea that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I do it with anything. I feel
Maybe I'll try that.
So I did one that was a green yuzu rose petal one. And I feel like the yuzu and rose petal did not really develop. Yeah. So I feel like that one maybe would have benefited from boiling water or close to boiling water because I don't use boiling water in green tea. But
of course, yes, 80%.
Obviously.
Obviously, yes.
Done my research. Come on.
I only actually found that out when I was researching for the episode on the archaeology of tea. I was reading, I was like, I did not know that. But okay, maybe I might do some
a friend of mine went into some deep dive on, tea preparation. She's like, there's different ways to pour the water on the tea, Jess. I'm not prepared to be an expert on tea. And I was like, you don't have to. Come on, you have your tea. It doesn't need to be complicated.
But yeah, okay. Maybe I'll do some experiments then and see how I can make my ice.
I recommend it. It's a lot less labor intensive. So that's what I like.
That's the thing. Although, I got into the rhythm of basically prepping, so I'd have one in the fridge, a whole bottle, and then I'd boil the tea for the next day. So then it would, by the next day, it would be ready, and then I'd do it for the next day. So I was sort of a day ahead, it kind of worked. But yeah. Also, it means that I can use one of my very cute little teapots, which has a face on it.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, like the mug you got me that one time?
Yes, exactly. It's the same brand.
I found that in a cupboard recently, and I was like, how have I lost track of this mug for so long? It was the best. It has this little, I don't know, was it sort of like a sulky face?
Is it the sulky one, or is it the please? Because I think if I remember, the exact name of it was bitter, which means please.
Oh yeah.
It's like puppy eyes.
Yeah, very definitely a lower lip involved.
They're just so cute. By the way, not endorsed or sponsored in any way, shape or form. I just really love these particular prep of cups, and I'll put a link in.
But hey, if they want to throw an endorsement our way,
if you're listening, I don't even know what the brand is called actually off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the show notes anyway. And yes, if anyone who works for that particular company is listening and thinks that we'd make a good, brand deal or whatever, feel free, get in touch. Would love some of them. But
I'll advertise all day, every day.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry about it.
There you go. I've got my teapot, and I've got little egg cups as well from them. In fact, I think I have an older egg cup.
Oh, that's so cute.
Anyway, speaking of crockery and like plates and bowls, we're continuing with the third part of our cutlery episode extravaganza. So we've covered knives, which are sort of the oldest form of cutlery, one could argue, that humanity has. We've covered spoons, which is kind of maybe the second oldest, maybe the first, also pretty old. But today,
and I would argue very universal, the spoon.
Yes, exactly. Both knives and spoons, very universal. Now we get on to the slightly weirdly complicated piece of cutlery, which is the fork. And when I was first thinking about this topic, before I started researching it, I had read somewhere about like the fork not being accepted as a tool for a really long time, like in terms of religion or something. It was seen to be like the devil's tool because of the fork, devil's fork and all that kind of stuff. But that's all I kind of knew about it. I don't know if you knew any more about the fork before you started looking stuff for this episode.
I mean, being an American, the thing that I think about with forks is like, what hand are we supposed to hold it in? Because I remember when I was growing up, I saw my siblings, who are both Dutch, using the fork with the left hand and a knife in the right hand, and you don't switch. Yes. But I saw every American around me switching to eat with their right hand with the fork. And so then I was like, well, no, I'm not going to switch anymore, because they'll figure out that I'm American. Because like, obviously that wouldn't be obvious immediately.
Otherwise you would get away with it.
So I've trained myself to eat with my left hand. I don't understand.
What do you mean they swap? Do you mean you stick the fork in, you cut the whatever it is, and then you put the knife down?
Correct. And then you take the fork in your right hand.
Other hand?
It's so inefficient.
It's so inefficient. How?
It's the dumbest thing.
I don't understand. What's the logic?
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that, and I think this came up in the research too, was that, being left-handed was a problem. And so you were supposed to do all the activities with your right.
I see.
So you had to do the cutting and the eating with your right. But again, I think it's silly.
Apologies to any Americans listening at my flabbergastedness, but come on,
no apologies. We don't get apologies for inefficiency.
That's like, I'm trying to think of an equivalent and I can't, because all the equivalents I can think of are just ridiculous, but it is just slightly.
It's like, the only thing I could imagine would be when you twirl pasta with your fork on a spoon.
Yeah.
Imagine eating the pasta with a spoon, but then you have to switch hands. But then again, it would be silly. And why would you do
also
that?
Don't switch hands when you do the pasta on a spoon.
I know. No, because that would be, again, silly. There's no reason.
My mind. I had no idea that this was a thing. Wow. I thought you were going to talk about, because I saw your little note. We've got a list of notes of discussion points and things that we refer to throughout the episode. Spoiler alert, a little behind the scenes insight for you there for people listening in. And I had seen debate between keeping forks in left hand or moving around or something. And I was like, oh, maybe she means because what I noticed moving to Germany, when I use a fork and knife, I have it so that the tines of the fork are angled down. So it's curved downwards to stick it into the thing. In Germany, you have it the other way round and you hold it like you hold a spoon when you're eating soup, and you're supposed to kind of hold it not with the palm facing up kind of thing.
And here's
and so for Germans, they'll hold their fork like that in their left hand and pierce it, cut it, and then scoop it up, which I was having a debate with my German husband about this. And he was like, yes, that makes more sense because then you can use it like a spoon to like scoop up stuff. Whereas if you've got it faced the other way, you have to use it almost like a rake and that doesn't work. Whereas if you use it like a
flip
spade,
either see, I flip mine depending on what I'm eating. So,
so you can't quite get the Americanness out of you though.
I know.
You still have to make some kind of change.
I know, right? So like if you're stabbing, then you stab the tines down. So everything curves down into the food. But then if it's more like you have to like scrape things up, I wouldn't, unless it's a really good fork. And I have my feelings about what makes a good fork. Down? Like I would keep it down maybe and put things on top.
Yeah. You like pile it on top with your knife. You like scrape
you could flip it like and then, and then sort of shovel.
Oh, no, see, I always learned to do it that way. But yeah, Germans held it the other way. And so they do it that way. And it's one of those funny things. See, 10 minutes in. And all we've discussed is
how we use a fork.
How we use a fork in the modern day. So this already shows you that it looks like a simple tool. It looks like something, and everyone's like, yeah, a fork. How complicated can it be? Very complicated, apparently, because as we've seen, even like similar kinds of countries and cultures like America, Germany, UK, or Western Europe, shall we say, and America, even within that sort of relatively small sphere of cultural overlap, you have so many differences apparently in how you use this relatively simple tool. So, oh my goodness. Okay. Well, yeah, I did not expect us to discuss this point.
Well, now you have to watch Americans eat with their knives and forks because
I'm going to. The next time I hear an American accent in a restaurant, I'll be like, they're using their fork.
So there was like a rumor that during the Revolutionary War in the United States, that's how they like picked out the spies, was how they used knives and forks. Like apocryphal, I don't think it's real, but it was something to do with like the American settlers.
Interesting.
Like American accents. Apparently American accents are more similar to like what British sounded like 250 years ago than it does now.
We're gonna get some notes for that one.
I don't like it. I don't like that idea, but anyway, American accents. I don't even like mine. But yeah, so they would, see if they switched hands or not or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't remember which way it went, but it was somewhere.
Okay. Well, but that's really interesting. Which, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about because the way that people used forks, and actually this is a lovely segue into trying to look at the kind of oldest fork and when forks started being used is actually really difficult because nowadays, in a lot of places of the world, you use a fork as sort of a standard eating tool. I should say, in a lot of places in the world, you don't use forks. You either use other implements like chopsticks, which we're going to talk about a little bit more next episode, or you just use hands, right? Because that was kind of all you needed. If you needed to cut some of your food up, you would need a knife, right? You couldn't just do that with your bare hands all the time. So you had to use a knife. If you had something quite liquid, especially if it was hot, it wasn't that good to use your hands or whatever all the time for having more liquid kinds of food. So hence the spoon starts to get involved. But actually everything that you could eat a fork, that you need a fork to eat with, you can just use your hands, really.
Or a knife. I mean, you can spear things.
Yeah, or you can spear it. Yeah, exactly. So that means that actually for the longest time, forks were not even necessary. And still in a lot of parts of the world, they're not necessary because you use your hands and your fingers. So if you see forks in the archaeological record or even in the historic record or in pictorial references, so in pictures or on sort of tapestries or anything like that, they're quite a lot of the time they're used for other things. So they're used for agricultural purposes or military purposes, or even if they're slightly smaller and they look more like what we would think of as a table fork, you have for example, some tools involved in net making that are actually look pretty similar to a fork. They look like what we would think of as a fork, but they're a tool for sort of a crafting process. And even if they were used for dining, they were actually mainly used for the serving or the carving. So to hold the food while you cut it, basically. Mm-hmm. So they weren't at the beginning, from what we know historically, they weren't even used or referred to as eating forks. They were used to to serve. So you'd use it to like move the pieces of food from the main central plate to your plate, or you'd use it to like pierce the, roast pig that you needed to slice up or something like that. So yeah, it's a surprisingly complicated object.
Yeah. And it took a while to catch on in Europe, right?
Yes.
I remember reading that.
Yeah. So apparently the first actual like historic record of a fork in Europe is, and this is one of those stories that it's like everyone quotes this as the first use of a fork in Europe, and they claim that then the Byzantine nobles brought over sort of the fork, so from the Byzantine Empire, because you have this account of someone called, all right, bear with me, Maria Agriopolaina. We'll go with that. It dates to 1000 CE, so 1004 after the year zero. And it's a noblewoman who married a Southern European nobleman. And there are accounts of her using a golden fork to eat with. And at the time, that was seen as completely shocking and rude. And everyone was like horrified that she was doing this, but actually it was sort of common practice in the Byzantine Empire. Interestingly enough, I was trying to look for like original sources for this and I couldn't find any. So it's all a little bit, she said this, he said this, they said this, they talked about this. So how true it is, is one of those things. But it is an account and it's something that's been passed down through the history for a long time. But actually it's sort of, so that's in the 1000s. But it's not really until kind of the 15th century that we kind of see them start to be used a bit more regularly. And funnily enough, and actually we're already going to talk about my fun fact for this episode, because some people say, and again, hearsay, this episode is full of a lot of hearsay, but so apparently the use of the fork seems to have started in kind of Southern Europe, particularly around Italy. At this time in the 15th century, there was a lot of sort of climatic change and droughts and kind of things that really affected the food that was able to be produced. So it's at this time that you start to see a rise in popularity of pasta in Italy, which is quite interesting. And it's also around this time when you start to see forks potentially being used as actual like table forks. And the reason they think this is because you have a lot of these sporks from the 15th century. So they're like a little spoon on one end, a little fork on the other end, which then sort of suggests that people are using them as a kind of multi-purpose tool for eating. Okay. And so it could be said that we introduced forks. We were just talking about having to use, a fork and a spoon to twirl the spaghetti on. People say that the pasta was a little too slippery and a little too slimy to use your hands to eat with. And that's why we started using forks.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Right? I mean, who knows if it's true? But I think it's a fun story. But yeah, up until the 15th century, it's still unsure how like widely accepted it is, especially in Europe and even in other places. We don't really have kind of written records about anything. But then from like the 17th and 18th centuries, then we see them start to become like more widely accepted around sort of in Europe at least. And then it sort of spreads across to America, where they then decide to actually make eating into like a workout sport and just keep moving the fork around from. And
yeah. I mean, we do like a multitasking moment. So
yeah,
we like to make things difficult for ourselves.
Yeah. But speaking of, maybe we should have a quick break and do some practice, some exercises, moving our forks from one hand to the other, just to, get that daily workout in.
Perfect. Let's do it.
We'll be right back. Okay, well, my hands are feeling quite tired after that workout, so I think I might need a break now and just do some talking instead.
I don't blame you. This is why I learned to, not switch hands.
Yeah, gosh, so exhausting.
It is. It's exhausting to watch too. Like watching an American eat. It's a time. It's a time, guys.
Oh yeah, amazing. Anyway, I'm really going to pay attention to this now. Whenever I have anyone American in the vicinity who's eating, I'm just going to be like, I'm watching. Anyway, that sounded really creepy. But anyway, well.
And judging.
Yes, very much judging. So we've talked a little bit about like how forks kind of came about and how they became a sort of a staple, shall we say, of the dinner table. But the oldest archaeological evidence is actually quite difficult because of like what we were talking about before, where even if you see a fork, that doesn't necessarily mean it's like an eating fork. So if we're talking about cutlery as like the knife and fork that you eat with at the table, it's kind of hard to know where that would start. But if we're looking for the oldest actual physical evidence, and this was a kind of fun fact that I was like, oh, this is really fun. And then, well, anyway, we'll talk about it. If you think of forks, what's the first country you think of, Jess? And you think, yes, this is obviously where the fork originated.
I mean, having done research, I have a very different answer than originally, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to go England.
Apparently it's China.
Yay!
Which, spoiler, it's probably not. So there's like all of these sources online which are like, yes, the earliest sort of alleged archaeological fork with these bone forks with 2 prongs that were discovered on the site of why have I chosen all of the horrible things to pronounce in this episode? Huangniangniang Tai. Yeah. Huangniangniang Tai site, which comes from I can never remember the pronunciation of the Q.
I think it's Chicha, but I could be very wrong.
Chicha. Qijia culture in China, which the site itself dates to between around 2400 and 1900 BCE, which let's just quickly double back to the last couple of episodes where we were talking about the oldest knives, which depending on how loosely you want to term a knife could be like 3 million years old, and the oldest spoon, which is like 5,000 or 6,000 years old. You already have like an actual spoon. These are the oldest things which are potentially forks, and they're only dated to 2400 to 1900 BCE. So that's...
They're babies.
They're pretty young, relatively speaking. It was only 5,000 years ago, which, sounds like a bit of a oxymoron, but yeah. But this site, so the site itself was excavated between 1957 and 1975. However, it's very difficult to find the original source material. One, because it's not always publicly accessible. So there aren't any kind of excavation reports or museum catalogs or like reviewed article which specifically mention a fork. So of course, if we were in China and we spoke Chinese, maybe we could find the original excavation reports and we could have a look at it. However, I personally do not speak Chinese. A lot of the people who are making these claims in these sources also do not speak Chinese. So they're basing it off secondhand knowledge of a translation of the original document, which is probably in the original document something more like fork-like bone implement. And then people basically jumped on that and were like, it says fork, it says fork. They have the oldest forks. But actually, it's more likely that it's something else that potentially looks a bit like a fork.
I mean, that's a hard one. Any translation thing with research is always such a minefield.
Right? I mean, and this is especially with something like archaeology, where especially if you're looking for, oldest records of things, it's so difficult to actually collaborate. I had a very interesting conversation with someone at some point, but slightly frustrating at the same time, because they were basically saying, yeah, but I don't understand. If this is such an issue, why don't all the archaeologists in the world just get together and they can agree on this? And I can't remember what the original topic was. And I was thinking, okay, all the archaeologists in the world that's quite a big group of people. And B, all the archaeologists in the world coming together and agreeing on something.
That's so cute. What an idea.
Right.
That's adorable.
It's this whole kind of, and this is why I've always been astounded by that sort of pseudo-archaeological thing of like, oh, big archaeology, they're hiding all these secrets from you. I'm like, do you know how difficult it is to keep anything hidden in archaeology? Because someone will squirrel it out and someone will find out about it. And also, like, we would be shoving that down each other's throats. We would be like, if there was anything that could potentially bring us funding or make us famous or anything like that, we would be shouting it to the high heavens. Like, there is no way that there is a worldwide secret, like, archaeological organization, because even the relatively international archaeological organizations that we have are so disrupted and so, oh my gosh, all the arguments and all the debates and all the, conflict that's happening within these things. Anyway, sorry, I've gone on a slight
proof that they've never actually met an archaeologist, because so I went to a Egyptology conference recently full of archaeologists, and before anybody even mentioned their name, they'd start talking about their research. I didn't know who I was talking to, but they were like, here's all my research and here's my data and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, sorry, what? I'm not an Egyptologist. I'm just here for fun. So what are we talking about? Who are you? So yeah, I mean, yeah, no, there's no secrets. There's no secrets, guys.
No. And I mean, I do kind of see, because one thing that I guess I have noticed is that sometimes people can be a little secretive about their site. Like they don't necessarily want to give other people unlimited access to things because they want to be the ones to like publish on them and report on them. But then that's the whole point. They publish and report on them. Like it's...
Yeah. They just want the publication rights, but that's reasonable.
Exactly. Because especially in academia, it's publish or perish. So you have to publish those things and be a first author and all that kind of stuff in order to kind of get anywhere, which is definitely not a good part of academia, in my opinion. But
that's why I'm not in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it is getting a little better, but unfortunately it's what the majority believe. And if you're not in the majority,
still how
then
funding gets assigned.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Which I feel like we could have a whole episode just ranting about the inadequacy of the current worldwide archaeological thing. But this is the point. This is why. So I had this whole conversation. I don't even know how we got onto this now. Oh, yes, right. Translation. So the point was, they were saying like, oh, why can't all archaeologists? And I was saying, well, on principle, I feel like all archaeologists would not be able to get together. In logistically, not possible, but also on principle, probably a lot of discussion and debate, and no one would agree on anything. But also, it's such an international discipline, and there's so much cultural and political influence on the archaeology as well. Like you'll have a different kind of archaeology in one part of the world to in another part of the world. Not necessarily better or worse, just different depending on the like perspective and the priorities of the particular cultural context that archaeology takes place in, which so
well, and even even if you get into like the style of digging, like it's a very different experience digging in sand versus in soil versus in wherever.
Exactly, just practically so there's like the practical side of it. There's also, I feel like the political side is a massive part. There was a whole thing at some point that basically anything east of the Iron Curtain, in quotation marks, wasn't shared with west of the Iron Curtain just because of political reasons. And then at some point it started to get a lot better, and now it's gotten a lot better. But also, for example, especially Chinese archaeology, just because the majority of Chinese archaeology is published, of course, in Chinese, and there's very few people in the Western world of archaeology who bother to learn Chinese, which means that's a lot of the material that's just unavailable to if you don't speak the language or if you're not sort of involved with the culture. And also in terms of politics, quite a lot of it is just not shared outside of China necessarily. So it's
right, and you can't just like Google Translate to do the work for you.
Yeah,
and
because
you lose a lot of the like nuance.
Exactly.
With translation for example,
like bone implement. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and this
what do
relates
we think
to then,
the real oldest evidence?
Well, there was one more that I just wanted to mention because it came up a couple of times, which was a grave site in Mycenaean Greece, which dates to 1600 BCE, so a little bit later than the fork-like bone implements, but still old, still before the year zero. And this is a two-pronged implement, which has been described from a gravesite. However, again, there's very limited publicly available material from the original source. So I couldn't find any original material about this, and I couldn't find any original evidence for this. And because it's two-pronged, it's very likely that it wasn't actually used for eating. It was probably used for like serving and carving. So...
I do remember I was about to say eating instead of reading. Oh my God.
You're just getting so caught up in the theme.
I'm just so caught up that the early forks were, documented early forks were two-pronged. And that was part of the reason why the Western Christian cultures didn't like them, because they were devil-shaped or something. Yeah. Like that symbolizing that
makes sense. Because the earliest sort of forks that we have are actually from ancient Rome that date to around like the 1st to the 4th century. And they're also two-pronged a lot of the time, or three-pronged, or there are some really interesting ones that are four-pronged, which look almost like a trident, which is quite interesting. And then you also have actually an early Anglo-Saxon fork that was discovered in the UK that has a wooden handle. Like it's actually like a little fork with a little wooden handle. which
cute.
dates, right? It's very cute. I'll put all of these links in the show notes, by the way. So go and have a look at the pictures from the Met Museum. They have a lot of nice open access pictures of these. And those date to the 5th to the 6th century. So it's starting to get a little bit later. And then in the late Sasanian culture, which is ancient Persia, so I guess the region around kind of Iraq and Iran in modern day world, you have forks, again, dating to sort of the 6th to the 8th century. And again, they're sort of multi-pronged, so mostly two-pronged, but you have a lot of different ones as well. And again, you have kind of this uncertainty over whether they're actually used for eating or whether they're just used for like transferring food. And you do have there's like one book, which is like the Bible on Roman forks, apparently. And in that book, they specifically say that in the sort of 3rd to the 5th century, you start to see table forks emerging. And indeed, it's in the Roman Byzantine Empire. So again, we're going back to the Byzantines, which is where Maria Argyro Pauliana.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of letters in there.
So many letters, and they all seem to be in the wrong way. And also, part of me is wondering whether I might have typed my notes out wrong, like whether I did a typo in my notes.
I do feel like there was like a Agrippina, but I think what is that, Greek mythology or something?
I think that's someone else.
Yeah, but that's who I keep thinking of. And then there's too many letters after it. And so then I'm like, nope, not the same.
Yeah. But so those are the oldest forks. But indeed, like we said before the break, it's sort of, I think that the oldest that have kind of been more certainly discussed as like, yes, these are eating forks, isn't until like 5th century. 15th.
Yeah, and it would be almost impossible to figure out the use-wear analysis too for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because most of the time they're made from metal. Even the earlier forks are made from metal, or you have these bone ones, I guess. But then also, how do you do that? Because even if they're being used for carving or for serving, you're still going to see like them being shoved in food. So
yeah, there wouldn't be like teeth marks in them necessarily.
Right? Yeah, I mean, maybe there could be, or maybe you could see some sort of, because actually, have I talked about the handling traces already? I probably have, haven't I?
In cutlery contexts?
Oh, well, maybe just in general. So in bone objects, there's this particular microware trace called handling traces. I've probably talked about this on the podcast before. Apologies if you're a regular listener and you're like, ugh, she's going on and on about the handling traces again. But they're just my favorite microware trace. So they're these basically microscopic, teeny tiny little pock marks, and they're not the natural bone material pock marks like the osteons, and they're not like naturally on the surface of bone. But they are created by some kind of chemical reaction that occurs between living human skin and the bone. So like people think it maybe have something to do with like the sweat or something in our fingers or elsewhere on our bodies. And that's what creates these kind of pock marks, basically, these tiny little pinprick pock marks. And so it's really cool though, because you can see, so the pock marks, they get kind of more plentiful and more numerous and have a wider spread, the more you handle an object in that particular area. So you can look through a microscope at an object. And for example, for my PhD, I was looking at needles, right? And you could look at this tiny needle and look along and you could see where people had been holding it the most and like had been handling it the most and all of this kind of thing. So yeah, it's very exciting. But so
That's
those
very
are
cool.
It's so cool, right? So you can actually see like where people were touching it, and it only works with living skin, not like leather. So
right. I think we as humans are slightly acidic, so that does make sense to me.
Probably. Yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering whether like there would be something with saliva that maybe that would leave a particular kind of trace, and you could see that kind of similar to a handling trace. I feel like we need more experiments. We have what was the last experiment we need to do with the knitting, right? Knitting needles.
The knitting needles, yeah.
And now we just need to eat with different material forks and see if we can see evidence of eating.
I mean, if you just think of like the forks and knives you have in your kitchen drawer, I mean, you can see little micro scratches on those.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know that,
whether the saliva would make a difference. It'd be interesting. Anyway, there we go. A potential
I don't think so
study.
on metal. This is my, unbiased opinion over here, and by unbiased, I mean probably biased. I don't think saliva would eat away at the metal.
No, I don't think so, right? And it wouldn't leave any more traces than like handling in a meat or something. So that's why I'm only thinking, I think it could only work on something like bone or maybe even wood. Yeah. But metal,
Yeah. Well, because we use saliva to clean things in conservation all the time because it has enzymes in them, but it's considered non-abrasive and it's not as wet as water, so you don't get the same sort of like rust that you could get from using water to clean something that you would from saliva. So I'm thinking that it would be pretty like there wouldn't be a lot of any sort of residue or something.
Yeah. Oh, well, but anyway, so yes, in conclusion, the fork, for being so apparently simple, it's actually surprisingly complex, not just in terms of like how late it apparently appears in the archaeological record, in historic records, but also how it's used, the sort of social etiquette around using forks and everything like that. It just seems it's very tied up with like culture and like not just in the modern day even, but even sort of in his historic times and kind of religion even and all of that kind of stuff. So it's quite interesting. I
like how that it's evolved so much, especially I feel like in the last maybe 200 years, that like the specificity of a fork has gotten out of hand, which I think is very cool. And also like, calm down, it's a fork.
I mean, in general, cutlery, right? Like the amount of cutlery you have for like a full dinner set is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. I remember getting like into some sort of rabbit hole when I was younger about like which fork and knife to use. Like if you're at this fancy banquet and, you know, you work from the outside in and the dessert ones and the, you know, all these things. And it's just when am I going to run into this? I have yet to. The most I get is like an extra salad fork that might be smaller than like my dinner fork, but probably isn't.
We have some little forks and I have no idea what they're supposed to be used for, but they're like tiny little forks. And of course we have forks for the girls, but they are very clearly delineated because they have Winnie the Pooh and Minnie Mouse on them. So
do I remember that the Winnie the Pooh one is the favored?
Well, depends. One of them, the Winnie the Pooh one, is clearly her fork. So, Mummy, why have you given me this fork? This is clearly my sister's fork. And this one, the Minnie Mouse one, is clearly my fork. Silly Mummy. That's the general discussion that happens at the dinner table.
I mean, I'm glad that they have their own, you know, and there's no infighting about who's
the only issue is when, for example, Granny comes and doesn't realize that this one is not her fork and accidentally uses it for the, you know, for the yogurt that she doesn't like, but her sister does. And then it's like, but I can't use this now. Honestly, yeah. I mean, talking about social etiquette and cultural differences, try discussing cutlery with toddlers and you soon realize how complicated it can get.
If I go into a house with toddlers, I'm like, what am I using? What is Auntie
Where
Jess
am I allowed
using?
to sit? Where am I like?
Am I in your spot? Okay, tell me where I'm sitting. Like, no, there's no, like, I'm a guest, you know, like consider me a houseplant. Like, I'm not there to be in anyone's way. You tell me what's up.
One of my favorite videos that a friend of mine who also has toddlers, and I share a lot of these, you know, parenting videos and reels and stuff. And one of my favorite ones is like, you know, a beginner mom. And it's like, oh, you want a banana? Yeah, sure. Peels the banana. What? Why are you crying? Why are you crying? And then it's like, you know, an experienced mom. And it's like, you want a banana? Okay. Do you want it whole or do you want it cut up? Do you want to peel it or should I peel it? Do you want me to cut it with a spoon or with a knife? Shall I slice it this way or this way? Do you want it on a plate or in a bowl? Do you want this other thing? You've actually decided you want an apple? That's fine. I prepared one earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun times. Anyway.
Yep.
Speaking of, I feel it's probably time to end this particular break. I need to go. My hands are starting to get, you know, energetic again. So I need to go and swap my fork from one hand to the other. But thank you.
Uselessly.
Thank you very much for joining me, Matilda, and Jess on this tea break. We hope that you enjoyed this little deep dive into the history and the archaeology of the fork. And we will be finishing our little cutlery exploration with next episode in 2 weeks' time, looking at the history and the archaeology of chopsticks. If you liked us, please do like and follow and subscribe and rate us. It's great to always see your reviews and hear from you. Don't forget to check out the other shows on the APN for more fun archaeology content. Also, you can still, I think, by the time this episode goes out, you can still vote for the APN Awards. You can find all of the information on the Archaeology Podcast Network website, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well, which is celebrating archaeology and heritage and history and conservation, etc. podcasting for the last year. So please do go and nominate people and episodes. You can nominate us for the APN Awards, and then they'll be voting in the summer, and then the awards ceremony will be on the International Day of Archaeology in October. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about the topic of today's episode, or in general about sort of forks and cutlery and things, you can find all of the links and contact information in the show notes.
Also, if you have a favorite fork or you have opinions about fork shape, I want to know about it, because I have a lot of feelings about what makes a good fork. And I know that I disagree with people on the internet all the time. So please tell me your favorite fork.
Maybe we can do like an Instagram live when this episode comes out and discuss our favorite forks.
Ooh, we can have like examples. I have examples of what I think a good fork should be and their particular uses. So that would be fun.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll do it after this episode goes out so that people who are listening to this random ramble at the end of the episode will be able to see when the Instagram live is. So you can go to either the Archaeology Podcast Network Instagram or my Instagram, Archaeologist Teacup, and you'll be able to see it all there. Cool. Until then, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this tea break. If you like this episode, please do like, follow, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to check out the other shows on the APN for more fun archaeology content. And if you'd like to learn more about the topic of today's episode, make sure to check the show notes for links and further information.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.